all of the polygamists and principal voices, all in the movement to decriminalize, maintain that there's no more sex or uh, lasciviousness or lust among the Mormon fundamentalists than there are in mainstream society. That sex does not play a role. There's a discourse by Brigham Young and others who play down the idea that it's all about sexual gratification. The trouble is what's on paper and what actually happens seems to be two different things. And there's no question in my mind, if you have studied genetics and the role of the Y chromosome, which is to reproduce itself, and it doesn't care how it does it, and by seduction, by marriage, by rape, or by whatever, and in this case, the Y chromosome, I believe, is who is in charge. It's replicating itself through plural marriage, Mormon plural marriage. On my blog, I have published a book by chapters entitled Mormon Polygamy, A Virus of the Mind. And in it, I argue, and I think I prove my case, that the revelation that Joseph Smith received really didn't come from Jesus Christ, but from his Y chromosome. And for anyone that's interested, they can access all of that information on my blog. I spent about a year or two, and I have quoted geneticists and neurologists and different professionals to prove my case. Now, further proof is my one book, the latest published book, which is Polygamy's Rape of Rachael Strong. And it's a story about a 20-year-old girl who was raised in the TLC, the True and Living Church, headed by Jim Harmston. Jim had 18 wives, but he watched this little girl grow up, and he decided that he wanted her for his wife. And so he used coercion to force her into becoming his plural wife. And then he placed her in a home where he had his two other youngest wives. And on Saturday night, he would come and have intercourse with one of these women. And he had a special room down in the basement of that house. So, in an essence, it was his own whorehouse, because he had turned these young girls into prostitutes. It was his own personal bordello. And so, after he'd have intercourse, he would make these girls insist that they take birth control pills so that they wouldn't get pregnant. So it was all purely for sex, the whole thing for sex. Now, Brigham Young and all of the pro-polygamists say it's not about sex, it's about procreation. It's about providing bodies for the spirits in heaven to come down and take over. If that's the case, why was Jim Harmston making these young girls take birth control pills? Now, I've investigated dozens and dozens of rape cases successfully. And the elements of a rape are penetration, resistance, and force. You have to have those three elements. Those three elements were present in the Rachael Strong case, except the resistance took place over a period of time in which he intimidated or coerced her with revelations from God that she was going to go to hell, and that her 2-year-old baby would go to hell with her, and she'd have to spend 1,000 years there unless she consented to this marriage with Harmston. He was like 65 years old at the time, had 18 wives. In fact, Rachel's mother was his third wife. So here's a man like Tom Green marrying mother and daughter, as plural wives. And this happens all the time, even though she was an adopted wife, adopted child. The Attorney General's office investigated, and the attorney that I worked with on the Hill case and another Harmston case heard about it and asked me if I wouldn't go down and interview her to see if there was something that would help on the lawsuit there. So I went down with the AG investigator, who was a good man, and he investigated. I kept my mouth shut. He interviewed her first from the criminal aspect, and then I interviewed her second from the civil aspect. Well, make a long story short, the Attorney General declined to prosecute on rape, said that if she had been under age 18, it would have been a slam dunk. They would have gone ahead and done it. Well, me, I have to dig in and somewhat mulish. I went through in about a 20-page document, presented it to the Attorney General, the same as I would have to the county attorney had I been a deputy sheriff, trying to make the argument that resistance did occur, that it was a rape, and that it would be a real challenge for the Attorney General to go ahead and prosecute, even if they lost. All of this coercion and everything would come out. And besides that, if they didn't do the rape, the bigamy case was the best bigamy case that I was aware of that had ever been prepared in the state of Utah. We had people testifying who actually saw the marriage occur, the ceremony. I had documentation of the letters that he wrote trying to coerce her. I mean, everything was there. It was just a beautiful case. But he declined to prosecute because she was 20. And he just didn't want to prosecute a religious tenant. So that went unprosecuted. So I went to the Sanpete County attorney, a guy named Blackham. And what a farce that man was. I've talked with lots of attorneys and prosecuting attorneys. And he was irritated that I would even come there and present the case. And I had the victim there with me. And he listened to the story. He said, "I'll give you 10 minutes. I got about 20 and made my presentation." And he says, "Well, I'm not going to prosecute because my policy is the same as the Attorney General's. I'm not going to prosecute." So in essence, what they were doing was giving Jim Harmston and every other polygamist who used coercion on any woman, an adult woman, to get her to become a plural wife, he had a free pass because it was apparently considered religious freedom. It was crazy. And of course, this even made me more determined to expose really what goes on in these polygamous cults.
Well, isn't this religious freedom a religion that takes away part of your eternal salvation if you don't obey, for which also the only way you can be really truly redeemed is by blood atonement, which they may or may not carry out? That's not only coercion, it's a threat.
Yeah. Well, in my internet book, Virus of the Mind, I spent a whole chapter on section 132, which is the alleged revelation that Joseph Smith received. And it is inherently coercive. It's intrinsically coercive because it damns anybody who will not accept the revelation. Christ allegedly threatens to kill Emma, Joseph Smith's first wife, if she doesn't submit and let him have his plural wives. In verse 64 and 65, it threatens to kill all first wives or monogamous wives if they don't go along and let their husband have plural wives. You bet it is. It's no different than Islam. If you're a non-believer, you're an infidel, and you will be damaged. You're fair game to exploit in any way that they want because there's an entitlement, because they're polygamists, they're entitled.
They don't seem to think that this coercion of eternal damnation and blood atonement is a threat. They actually seem to want to shrug that off because, in other words, there's no crime unless we've got a dead body. I just hate that idea that it's not rape if she's over 18. You can do anything you want to her, but it's not rape if she's over 18. They're not doing anything about helping women that are over 18. even
No,
though they've been in this coercion and prison of indoctrination all of their lives. It's too
yeah,
bad.
yeah, yeah. It is too bad, and right now, from what I read on the internet from ladies like you and others that are actively involved, uh, this movement to decriminalize polygamy is going to take a big leap here in the very future. And I think that the anti-polygamists need to be prepared to combat that. But the trouble is, the liberal media really isn't interested. They're only interested in the positive side or the pro-polygamy side, you know. Um, and somehow, you ladies have got to generate interest in the bad side. It's amazing how people think. Like here we see what Warren Jeffs has done, the corruption and the crime, sexual crimes that exist right there, and to say that the people, the members, were unaware of that going on. Oh, that's stupid. Mothers had to present their little 14 and 15-year-old girls to this man, knowing what he was going to do. And fathers had to be involved in it. In the FLDS, Warren Jeffs says that child has to go. Take him to St. George and dump him off on the streets. Mothers do that, and fathers do that, because the religious belief takes precedence over everything else, even the maternal instincts and paternal instincts of parents. It's crazy the power that they have. And this power is used in other ways, like to justify the theft of $1.5 million from Virginia Hill. And the public has to be aware of what is going on, the mental set of the people involved in this type of a lifestyle. And it's mostly the leaders who are the most culpable. But the people are nothing but sheep. They say nothing or and do nothing, and let these men get away with it.
The thing that's so sad about it is these sheep that feel like they're going to go to heaven if they're just obedient actually become perpetrators after they're in there for a while. They are perpetrators when they take their children and throw them out on the street, and when they give their little girls to be raped. They are perpetrators. But I firmly believe that this sort of crime will continue as long as the incentive to stay in it is greater than the incentive to get out of it.
Very well put. Very well put. And the incentive is, but, in the FLDS, the growth comes from within. Each new crop of young girls. AUB, their growth comes from outside, and that is the frustrated ranks of the LDS Church. I think that the LDS Church could do more to discourage people from converting to fundamentalism. And a lot of the people, even the raised in the church, and a lot of the young people, they're more exposed to the outside world, and so they can observe and see for themselves the difference between mainstream society that happens inside AUB. And there's a distinct pecking order. There's the elite and the secondary families. And it's an educated guess that 65% of the youth in AUB who are raised in there or born in there leave once they become old enough to set out on their own. And I have a good argument to back that up. And that's because they know the difference. But you're right. The incentive to go in on the part of men is the Y chromosome primarily. And I've read where that's also an incentive for men to convert to Islam, is because they're allowed to have 4 wives.
Right.
There's a real parallel between Islam and Mormonism. And I'm talking about Mormonism, everything that exists and transpired from the time Joseph Smith wrote the Book of Mormon up to the present, which includes the church and all of the fundamentalist groups. Now, as far as women converting to Mormon fundamentalism. I've done a study on that. And I have found that the typical woman who converts is a single mom who has had a bad monogamous marriage. And she is susceptible to the idea that it's better to have part of a good man than all of the bad men. A single mom in the LDS church, although they do their best, I give them credit, to make them feel welcome, they don't always feel that welcome. But the unification that they receive inside of AUB is much more gratifying than it is in the LDS church. There's a whole new essay and thought on this very subject. And this is why I think that the church could do more to discourage people from converting.